Let me start recording. Can you see the recording option? Or?
Yeah, I just received a notice.
Okay. Perfect. So let's just.
And also, how's it going to work the Q&A? We're going to ask them to put in the chat.
They can put in the chat, or they can ask verbally as well if they want, you know.
Yeah, why not? I guess why not? If we're a small group,
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, Anna is here. Perfect. So I'm going to take everyone in.
Hello.
Hello, Ana Maria.
Anna.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Hey, Anna, how you doing?
All right.
Good morning.
Welcome,
Hello.
everyone. Let's see, we are over 12 participants connected now.
Good morning to everyone who's joining. We're going to give about a 5-minute grace period here to let any stragglers join, and then we'll be starting up here in about 4 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good day to everyone.
Hello, good evening.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone. For those who are joining us from different parts of the world, I hope you can hear me and I hope you can see our screen, the presentation. So just can type in if there is any technical issue if you're facing. I'm joined by my fellow colleagues here, Rachel, who is representing SAGE, and academic colleagues, Professor Miguel, Eduardo, and Anna joining us from Mexico, US, Colombia, and myself, Umesh, based in Brazil. And we would like to welcome you very much for our first online workshop of Academy of International Business partnership, LAC chapter partnership with SAGE about the special issue of cases of Latin America cities. So we'll be very, straight to the point about what this call is about, but we'll also take this opportunity to give you the idea about what the publication process is and what the special issue is intended for. So the agenda of today's presentation is, all of us would engage you in different capacity. We'll give you the overview about what is the special issue about and how SAGE is partnering with Academy of International Business, Latin America and Caribbean chapter. There is also an innovative format in which we are also giving Best Teaching Case Award at AIB LAC, which is going to be held in Peru. Then Rachel, who is presenting SAGE, would give you the overview about how the process of case study submission is at SAGE Business Cases. And then finally, myself, along with our academic colleagues, would give you just a few tips for what are we looking out for in this special issue. And then moving on from here onwards, maybe down the year, we will have one more online workshop to stimulate more interaction and encourage you to submit the cases. So let's start with Miguel, who is joining us from Mexico to give us more idea about the AIB and SAGE partnership. And also, I would also, for the sake of disclaimer, I would also communicate that this meeting is being recorded and it will be shared on the SAGE YouTube channel so that other researchers can access it as well. So I hope that is not an issue with any of you. So let's go with Miguel. Can you hear us? And over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Umesh. Okay, so yeah, as Umesh was mentioning, this is a joint initiative between the SAGE Business Cases and the AIB LAC organization. As you probably know, the AIB, the Academy of International Business, is the largest organization focused on international business in the world. And the AIB LAC division is the one that is focused on the Latin American and the Caribbean region. So this Latin American and the Caribbean chapter of the Academy of International Business is the largest one as well in focusing international business in Latin America. And we are very grateful with SAGE because we were looking after this kind of collaboration from a long time ago. And I think this is a proper moment for us to develop this initiative. We also have different activities that we are going to conduct in the AIB LAC next annual conference that is going to be held in Lima, in Peru, in Universidad de Lima. So I think besides the case writing competition that has the deadline but mid-year this year, we were trying to give different opportunities for the international community, the international academic community, to engage in different opportunities, as I was saying, but also in different spaces and activities, academic activities for them within the conferences and outside the conference, such as this webinar. So I don't know, Eduardo, if you wanted to tell us something about specifically the track that you're leading in the conference.
Sure. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Umesh. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm Professor Eduardo. I'm talking here from Texas, United States, and I'm also one of the chairs of the Track 8, that is called Innovative Teaching and Research Methods in International Business, and actually is a track not fully dedicated, but also dedicated to receive teaching cases. We receive this kind of material, and also I've been seeing that each time more conferences, as they be like starting to accept this kind of material. So I think that's a great possibility, right? To send your case, receive feedback from it, and keep working on it, and aiming also publication, right? I had the chance already to present my own cases in AIB-LAC. Last year, I was in Greece, also presenting a few cases at the European International Business Academy. So each time more, the case method and this kind of material is becoming popular in world-class conferences. But sometimes there is not a track called case track, so you guys need to be aware where to submit. And AIB-LAC has been like here over the years a great opportunity to do it. We've been in Brazil 3 years ago, then Jamaica. Last year we were in Mexico, and this year Lima, and the next year, who knows, going to be announced very soon in March. We all going to be there. This year we received a lot of cases, around like 20 submissions to this track, which was the biggest number in the past few years. And one of the news of this year conference is that the cases that were submitted and they were qualified as for a competitive session, also they're going to be running for the Best Teaching Case Award. Okay, that is an award sponsored by SAGE. And you guys going to have the chance to get a fast track towards publication in the series that's going to go live in January 2027, right? And also receiving an award of $500. Okay, so if you are early career scholar, or even an expert in case writing, even like we've been seeing like many PhD students submitting to this track, I think that's a great opportunity. The submissions to the conference is already closed, but very soon they're going to be open again for the next year round, and that's how should be working for also the next couple of years. So yeah, stay tuned. Even if you're not going to Lima in March, you're still eligible to take part of this track for the next year, or even directly submitting to the SAGE special issue that we're announcing here. Okay, that's it. I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. Yes, as you were seeing, our intention in a general way with this kind of joint initiative together with AIB-LAC and SAGE is to provide these special chances for academics that could be more focused on developing teaching materials. Together with Umesh, some months ago when I visited him in Sao Paulo, we were talking about this. I mean, many of the orientation in terms of research, it's perhaps only focused on research papers. I mean, long papers, different kind of research material, of course, as we know, but we also know that there's a lot of academics that are actually strongly focused on developing teaching resources, and teaching cases is a way to develop this area. And our intention for this is to strengthen these areas. And as Eduardo was saying, we received more submissions in terms of teaching cases than before. I mean, that the last year, and we hope to increase this every year. So yeah, you're very welcome to submit your teaching cases to the next call that we are going to open for AIB-LAC 2027. Okay. So yeah, this is our official launching day. I mean, this webinar, this workshop today, but we also have mapped another, as we were saying, another activities. We are going to hold a pre-conference workshop during the March 3rd in Lima, and Eduardo is going to take part of the conference, and especially in this, participating in this panel when we are going to talk about teaching cases as well. And in a general way, the deadline for the submissions for this case writing competition, together with AIB LAC and SAGE, is on the 31st of July this year. So plenty of time. We are going to send um, many reminders for you to be aware of this date, but also we are going to develop another workshops later. Okay. So, Umesh, I think it's you.
Yeah. Just to briefly introduce ourselves, so Miguel is here representing the Tecnológico de Monterrey, myself from Brazil at FGV-ISP. Eduardo is joining us from US in Sul Roster University. Ana Maria is joining us from CEPA in Colombia. And then Rachel is here, who is representing SAGE. So over to Rachel now, who would be giving us more insights about the publication process and SAGE business cases.
Sure, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Rachel Taliaferro. I'm an executive editor with SAGE, working primarily with our SAGE Business Cases product. And I'm very happy to see among some of the participants in the room here a couple of familiar names who I know have published with SAGE Business Cases. But if you're unfamiliar with us, just a brief introduction into who we are. We are a digital library collection of business teaching cases. We acquire cases from a few different sources. Some of them are licensed from content partners such as Berkeley and Yale. Some of them come from SAGE's own suite of business and management textbooks and journals. But primarily, our business collection is made up of original cases that are submitted to SAGE Business Cases. They undergo a double anonymized peer review as well as a developmental review, and then are published annually as part of an annual collection. At the moment, we actually have more than 7,000 case studies from academics that has a huge breadth of reach of global perspectives. Many authors writing from multiple different cultural and economic contexts being able to submit and publish case studies that really give a global representation on different aspects of business and management. And a unique aspect of SAGE Business Cases is that we sell the collection to the library rather than the typical per case purchase model, which means students and faculty never have to pay out of pocket for a SAGE Business Case. Instead, that comes out of the library budget, which means we can provide campus-wide perpetual access and increased discoverability throughout the collection. Next slide, please. So who are our readers who will be seeing and using your cases? We have almost 500 customers that are academic libraries around the world. That includes North America, as well as Canada, India, China, Colombia, and nearly every country and continent except for Antarctica has at least one library that has access to SAGE Business Cases. So it is a truly global audience and global readership. Our primary audience tends to be undergraduate business students, but we do have a fair amount of cases that are focused on MBA students and executive MBAs that provide a little bit more complex, higher level analysis. Next slide. Our editorial vision for SAGE Business Cases, we are editorially driven and we do publish a highly curated collection every year. We focus on cases that, no matter who the target audience is, really ask students to think critically and to apply history and theory to real-world situations. So as much as we can, we really like to simulate the kind of decision-making and the kind of critical thinking that students will be facing once they're out of school and they're in a real-life business environment. We like to approach the collection by filling known content gaps, and this is part of the reason for this specific Latin America focused special issue. We like to cover the areas that aren't being covered by case scholarship or case publishers anywhere else, and we really like to focus on not only emerging topics, but on underrepresented parts of the world. And for a long time, we had very few cases focusing on Central or Latin America or the Caribbean, despite that region being such a powerhouse in industry and in the global economy. And so we're really focused on trying to fill that gap in case scholarship through this special issue. And of course, as mentioned, we do have a global audience, and we do like our cases to keep that in mind, keep that global audience in mind, and to ask readers to consider different cultural contexts and economic perspectives when it comes to critically thinking through a dilemma or having to make an informed decision about something. So we publish cases from 3 types of sources. Primarily, most cases are what we would call direct cases. These are based on direct field research. Usually they contain interviews, maybe some proprietary information from the organization. And because of that, these cases do require a signed release form from the featured organization. And that is something that SAGE can provide. We have a ready-made template for anyone who is seeking that kind of permission that we can provide to authors and they can use as needed. We also publish cases that are called indirect cases, and these are based on secondary or publicly available sources. So, for example, a publicly traded company will typically have some kind of documentation or financial reports that are made available to the public. And those you are welcome to use in your case study, and you do not need a release form for these if you're basing your case on information that is already publicly available. And we also publish what we call experience cases. Now, maybe you've been in a situation before where you're writing a case and you're working within an organization, but perhaps the case is not necessarily positive, or perhaps it's about a mistake or some kind of misstep that happened within the organization, and the organization doesn't necessarily want that information being made public, but they say you can fictionalize or disguise the case and will give you permission to publish. So that means you would anonymize or come up with fictional names or ciphers for the organization. And those we do accept. We don't require a release form because obviously the company names and the details are disguised. And we like to work usually with the authors and really making sure that they've done a thorough job in anonymizing those kinds of cases. And these are all cases where, as you're submitting, you can let us know through our submission platform which categories your case falls under, and then SAGE will provide any needed documentation so that you can go off and either seek permission or you can feel good about the work that you've done and know that nothing will be made public once it enters the review process. We do have very highly detailed metadata attached to all of our cases, which makes our platform really searchable and will make all the published cases very easily discoverable. I thought something to highlight here would be our browse by region option. So, ostensibly, most of the cases in this special issue will be focused on a very specific region, and we have designed our platform to make it very easy for users to pull and surface all of those cases in case in January 2027 you find yourself interested in looking at the cases that are in this special issue. Next slide. So here's a sample case, and this is just mainly to show you how a case is typically displayed on our platform. We do welcome video. We welcome multimedia elements. Our platform can support all of that. And keep in mind that student attention spans are quickly diminishing. And we really enjoy cases that have some kind of multimedia or interactive or photographic element in them, just to break up the text and to keep the students engaged within the case. And that's all something that we can do on our end. For any videos, we make sure that they are ADA compliant so that they're accessible to all users, even if they're using a screen reader. And we provide all of the long and alternative text needed to make sure all of these images and multimedia elements are as accessible as possible to every type of reader. So we do provide templates on the Sage Business Cases website that makes it easy for authors to download the documents, and then they don't have to do any formatting themselves at all. And we have all of the required content sections very clearly labeled in each of the templates. So just to quickly go over the very basic requirements for the title page, this is kept within Sage. It is not made public during the review process because we really believe in the integrity of the double-blind peer review process. So we do ask for a separate title page so that we can keep all of that information out of the reviewer's hands. And usually we ask for the case title, the author names, affiliations, the country, an email address, and then a short author bio. The main elements that we require in a case are an abstract, the learning outcomes, the case narrative, which will be the body of the text, discussion questions, and if needed, a further reading or references section. For the teaching notes, we require a case summary that is written for the instructor, so it is different somewhat from the abstract that's in the case. Teaching objectives, the ideal target audience, the suggested teaching strategy, and then just so that instructors have as much guidance as possible, suggested answers to the discussion questions so that they have the tools that they need to guide student conversation as they teach. And then, of course, if needed, a further reading and references section. And I'm seeing in the chat here a question about submitting 2 cases. Yes, you are absolutely welcome to submit more than one case, and we do welcome co-authors. So you are welcome to bring anyone on board to collaborate with you on your case study. Let's go to the next slide. So our case publication process is fairly streamlined. You typically, if you are unsure about the topic of your case, you are very welcome to reach out to a Sage editor, and we can send feedback or brainstorm with you before you submit, just to make sure that everything is in the best shape possible. Once you submit, the case will go through our peer review and developmental process, which typically takes around 8 to 10 weeks, depending on the time of year. If there are any revisions recommended by the reviewers, you will have a chance to revise and resubmit. Those revisions will then go under review. And upon acceptance, we do pay an honorarium. So every author will receive $350 upon acceptance, with the exception of the competition winners who will have a slightly higher honorarium as a reward. Once the case is accepted, it gets sent to Sage's production team, where it goes through typesetting and copy editing, and all of the accessibility measures and functionalities are introduced at that point. If there are any queries from our production team or from our copy editors, you'll receive a copy of the final proofs in order to resolve those queries. Once all of that is worked out, once we have final approval from both the author, from our production and editorial teams, then your case goes into the queue for publication in our next annual collection. So here are links to our author resources page. This is where you can download the Sage Business Cases author guidelines and our templates. And we also have some information around designing an impact statement for your case once published, because we do realize that depending on which institution you're at, that might be a requirement if you are going up for tenure or for promotion. And we do have a little microsite here that mentions our impact statement that you can include if you want to present your case on your CV. Next slide. AI, which is the big question these days, isn't it? We do have a fairly strict policy around generative AI. We do not accept cases or manuscripts of any kind that have been entirely generated by generative AI. So if you ask your ChatGPT or Claude to write the case for you, keep in mind that copyright cannot be given to AI. Per current copyright law, there needs to be some kind of proof of human authorship and human input within the manuscript. So we do advise not to use generative AI to help with the writing of your case. There are, of course, some other cautions here around plagiarized content or inaccurate or biased information. So we really would kind of caution against using those generative AI tools as you're writing your case. That said, we do offer some flexibility around the use of assistive AI. We don't expect everyone to be grammar experts, so it is perfectly fine to use a tool like Grammarly, or if you're a non-native English speaker and you're struggling with translating as you write, we of course offer some allowances around using assistive AI tools to help you with that. I should note that we do require full disclosure of any use of assistive AI upon submission. So if you have used AI or if you're planning on using AI, just make sure that you note that to the editors as you submit so that we are aware of the extent to which AI was used. A few tips just around lessons learned. I've been working on our business cases product for about 10 years now, and these are some tips that I found have really helped authors streamline their case writing process. And the biggest tip really is typically to write the conclusion first and work backwards, or alternatively, know what the learning outcomes and the teaching objectives are going to be, and then work from there. It's typically easier to write conclusive statements about the case and then expand from there with more nuance and detail as you're filling in the narrative. I would advise writing the case and the teaching notes somewhat simultaneously so that you can make sure there's alignment between the two pieces of the case. Very often we receive submissions where the teaching note don't actually align with the intended learning outcomes of the case, and then the revision work is needed in order to overhaul and revise and refine the teaching notes. So usually what helps authors when they're working on both simultaneously, then you can pretty much guarantee alignment between the two components of the case. We are very open to offering feedback. We're always happy to get early drafts and to read them through or to help work out any questions if you're experiencing writer's block, for example. So we would encourage you to create an outline or a case summary and send it to an SBC editor. We will then look at your case and offer some suggestions and let you know when we feel it's ready to submit for peer review. One big thing, if we can go to the previous slide, often, especially if you're working directly with an organization on the case, it's based on direct field research. What can sometimes happen, we found, is that the case can sometimes end up reading as an endorsement or as an advertisement for the organization or for a specific product. So I would just caution you to try your best to keep an objective and neutral tone, and keep the audience front of mind. Again, is the case intended for graduate students or undergraduate students? What will an instructor be getting out of the TN? Is this a case that's written for a global audience? Are there any explanations around very specific cultural contexts? Keep the audience in mind so that once published, you can get as wide a usership as possible. And of course, do your best to test your case in the classroom. Often this is really the proof of whether your case is an effective pedagogical tool or not, and whether students will engage with it in the classroom. They're often your best editors. So we do encourage everyone to give a go at teaching their case in the classroom and then refining it based on any student feedback or results in the classroom before you submit. We can go to the next slide from here. A couple more tips for successful publication. Be sure to include all of the required components in your case upon submission. This way the editors don't have to go back and forth and, wrangle documents. We can just send it straight on to peer review. Submit your contact info and your bio on a separate title page. Again, this is to protect the anonymity, the integrity of the double-blind peer review process, and to make sure there's no identifying author information within the case or the teaching note. We do encourage a word count between 1,000 and 5,000 words. As you know, modern students now kind of have trouble taking in anything longer than 5,000 words. So we really want the cases to be effective and as engaging as possible. And typically that means working with a slightly lower word count than you would see in a research article or in a textbook chapter. Include a clear decision point that really prompts students to apply their critical thinking and their critical decision-making skills to consider what they would do in a given situation. We tend not to accept cases where all of the discussion questions are simply descriptive, or they're asking students just to repeat back information that is given to them in the case. We really want these to offer some kind of simulation into what it's like to make decisions and to really think through problems and make informed recommendations. Again, about remembering your audience, avoid culturally specific or idiomatic language, or at least define that idiomatic language. Give context, and of course consider non-textual elements like images and video for greater engagement. And again, I cannot stress enough, cases are not free public relations. You really want to keep an objective, neutral tone to make sure that your case does not read as an advertisement. Next slide. So what gets rejected and why? We do reject cases on occasion if they don't meet our standards or expectations. So if your case is extremely long and we know that it just likely will not be getting usage from either an undergraduate or graduate audience, we will very likely send that back and ask to shorten it. If there are missing required content sections in either the case or the teaching note, we will send your case back. And I guess any undisclosed use of assistive AI will get sent back for a disclosure form, and any use of generative AI to write the case or the teaching note will be automatically rejected, because as we mentioned, that would be a violation of SAGE's current AI policy. Be sure if you're using any figures or tables or images that are from third-party sources. So say you're borrowing an image from a textbook or a research article, make sure you do your due diligence in finding out whether that content is copyrighted. And if it is, you can contact your SAGE editor and we will provide you with a template permission form to seek permission for reuse or to adapt any of those third-party figures. If the case contains insufficient analysis, or again, if the discussion questions are just very descriptive, very basic, usually that's an instance where we will send back before we go through peer review. We'll send the case back to the author and add some complexity, ask them to revise, ask them to add a little bit more depth to the case. And then cases that are really only timeline-only narratives or industry reports usually get rejected because we are looking for teaching cases that can be used in the classroom that aren't purely descriptive or just describing the state of a certain industry or economy. And with that, to answer Irma's question, yes, we actually are in the midst of creating a disclosure form for the use of AI. So please contact the Sage editor, the Sage editorial team, which will be me or one of my colleagues, and we can give you a templated form in which to write and submit your disclosure for AI. But with that, I will hand it over to the special issue editors to talk specifically around the expectations and vision for the series.
Thanks a lot, Rachel. Do you want to also go through this last slide related to
Sure.
benefits?
Yes. Some quick benefits for the case authors. Again, we do have this double-blind peer review, so you can list the case publication as a peer-reviewed publication. We do encourage, as Umesh mentioned, freedom to work with grad students in the case research or writing process. This can be a really great tool for your students, especially if they've never gone through peer review or if they've never had a publication before. We do offer thorough and free developmental editing from the Sage's in-house developmental editors. So if you're having trouble streamlining your narrative or having trouble with the structure of your case, we have editors on hand who will help out with that and who can work directly with you on that. Again, we have an honorarium upon case acceptance of $350. Copyright is retained in your name, in the author's name, and we provide upon publication the formatted PDF, a gift URL so you can access your case directly through the Sage platform, and each case receives an individual and unique DOI for discoverability. We are indexed on Google Scholar, which actually is where most of our traffic to Sage Business comes from. And as mentioned already, an international audience, and with the impact statement, if your institution is seeking AACSB accreditation, case scholarship now increasingly can count toward those requirements for accreditation. And the loveliest and most beneficial benefit of them all is a chance to help educate the next generation of students and business owners and managers, and really give them some direct experience with the kinds of decisions that they'll be making. So yes, I'll pass it over to our series editors.
Hi, Mesh. Sorry, can I just make a brief comment?
Yes, please go ahead.
On the last slide? No, just sharing like a little bit of my experience. I just had, as Mesh also, a case published in this year edition with Sage, and just mentioning about the editorial process in general, right? So actually it's very interesting, and I think it's a very good opportunity, especially if you never wrote a case or if you don't have too much experience in this double-blind peer review process that we're used with academic journals. Sage has their own way of doing things, and I think that's very interesting. And if we focus like on point number 3, the thorough developmental editing, it works a little bit different, right? Because besides you receive the peer review, the double blind and everything, also it gets to a point of the process that the editorial office of Sage actually gonna be working together with you in order to develop your case and make it better, with different rounds of feedback. So I think it's a very enhancing opportunity also to learn and have someone actually who is concerned to take your case to the next level. Yeah, so for me, I think it was very interesting, a little bit different that I was used to the regular journals, but I think it's still at the end a great opportunity and a great experience.
Perfect. Thanks a
Thank
lot, Eduardo. So maybe we can start with Ana Maria, if she wants to comment on what are we looking for special issue. Then Eduardo, you can comment, and then I will give some concluding remarks, and then we can go for Q&A.
Of course. So what are we looking for? We really want to see the region's context. We want to see its institutions, its cultures, constraints, opportunities. So they are clearly reflected in the cases, but also at the same time, we are offering insights that resonate with the students and instructors or professors around the world. So relating the topics, we are open to a different range of topics, included but not limited to global expansion strategies, cross-border collaboration and regional integration, diversity, equity, and inclusion in international business or in business, sustainability management, governance, CSR and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, leadership and business ethics, digital transformation, startup, innovation, and social entrepreneurship, supply chain disruptions, resilience, and impact of geopolitics and business, financial inclusion in fintech ecosystems, and also indigenous business cases and community leadership. Those are some examples of the type of cases and topics that we want to see, but they are not limited to those topics. Also, I want to remark something that Rachel mentioned. So it's the decision point of cases. So we are especially interested in cases that place students in the role of the decision maker and ask, for example, what should be done now? What are the available options? What are the risks, the trade-offs, and also the uncertainties involved? And also, I want to mention that the most effective cases must show real tensions, the dilemmas, the competing priorities, so they can allow the students to see the complexity, ambiguity, and also take decisions just as managers do in real life. So we are also looking for cases that are designed for teaching. This means that a strong connection between the case narrative and also the learning objectives, the theoretical frameworks being applied, whether those relate to internationalization, sustainability, or the other topics that we are also receiving. And also the teaching is very important. It's a core component of the submission process that you should go to the submission page of the series to see like the template and also the requirements for this teaching note.
Eduardo?
Yes. Thank you, Ana Maria. As you guys could read, we're talking about Latin America series, right? So I think that's a very important point, right? Latin America needs to make part somehow of the context of the case. It not necessarily needs to be a company from Latin America, but the company who is retracted on the case needs to dialogue somehow with different Latin American spaces, right? So it can be, for example, a company from the United States or from Europe is trying to enter or have a subsidiary in Latin America, so needs to have this dialogue with the region somehow, okay? So try to pay attention to that. And also my suggestion is the same recommendation that I give to everyone that comes to talk to me about case writing. I try to give a special attention to the teaching notes, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a teaching material. We are aiming like educators, how to help educators delivering their classes, their courses. And I see a lot of people that actually write a case and forgot about the teaching notes, right? I would say that the case is only maybe 50% of the work. And yes, we still need to have some work to do after writing the case, after finishing the case. And my suggestion would be start from the end, right? Rachel spoke about some point. Write the last paragraph before, and then you build from that. I think also this work for the teaching notes, try to think about your learning objectives, okay? At the end of the case discussion, what are the objectives that you think that the students can learn from it or can achieve? And then you need to create like the necessary information on the case in order to achieve the learning objectives, right? So try to make a connection from the beginning. So a good way to do it is try to start drafting, okay, what are my learning objectives? And if you are a PhD student or if you are an educator, a great way to start is thinking on your own subjects, okay? So what are the courses I'm teaching? And looking my syllabi, how I could use that case in one of my classes. I think if you start from that point, I think things gonna be much easier. So that would be my mainly advice, but obviously the idea at the end is share our contact. You guys are free to reach us out at any point and we can keep going with that discussion.
Great. Thanks a lot, Eduardo. We still have some few minutes here, so I'll also share some insights. So as everyone mentioned, right? So the Latin American context is extremely important. So be attentive, and it could be, as you mentioned about, think about in any context, for example, an international company within the region is facing some cross-cultural challenges. Or think about also a company from Latin America, which is trying to, expand its operations abroad. And, that could be connected very well intra-regionally. So you may have, let's say, company from Brazil moving to Colombia, and you would have cross-cultural issue. Vice versa, it could be between Latin America and Africa, Latin America, North America, Latin America, Europe, Latin America, Asia. So think about how genuinely you can highlight the context and the regional peculiarity of the region dominates the scenario, because I think that's where the characteristic of the cases. And then you can look around yourself, in your networks, what kind of possibilities you have. I always try to say, think in the opposite way. Think about an educator who is in US, in Europe, or in Asia, or in Africa. Why would they want to teach your case? What is so interesting in your case? Because you are not writing case necessarily for your academic output. That's only one goal, but you're also writing so that other educators can teach your case and why they should teach your case. So I think that uniqueness is something which you can reflect on. Something which we emphasize, and it always has a positive feedback, is let us assume that you have already written a case and you have not tested it yet. So before submitting, test the case in the class. At least for me personally, it works well. So for example, I take the printed copies, I pass it on to students, we have a class discussion, and then I also say, do you have any feedback? Do you think the script is flowing well? And then you can also see that the teaching notes are in alignment or not. So I think that's where testing in the class at least once or twice helps. I know that some other publishing houses actually make it as an obligation that it should have been taught at least twice or thrice in the class before submitting. We keep it optional, but I think it's extremely constructive if you can even test the case in the class. And then two things which are important, which everyone mentioned, but when we think about teaching note, think about what kind of theory, what kind of framework you are using to justify the case. So teaching note is actually, for me personally, is the toughest part, because we can write a case on as Rachel mentioned, on an experience-based scenario or an indirect case. I can pick up a scenario and write a case. But then what kind of theory I'm going to link to it? And that is where real job begins. So for example, if you would have 5 to 10 academic papers with genuine citations mentioning, look, this theory talks about this kind of framework, and then you could relate the case to this theory, then it becomes interesting, right? So think about, for example, a case study which is talking about leadership. Then what kind of leadership theories you're looking to? Think about cases which are talking about strategy. Then what kind of strategy frameworks and theories we are looking to it? And that's where I think the teaching note gathers the credibility, because you go back to the textbook, you go back to the academic articles, and you go back to the same content which you were teaching in slide, and then you can correlate, look, this is why this case makes sense in the specific syllabus, right? So these are some few ideas which we were able to share with you. I think we'll have still more 10 minutes to take up some quick questions. And then eventually we will send the PDF version of the slide to you. The recorded version of video will be on the Sage platform. And then again, we will be, doing some workshop like this same again, maybe by the end of April or in the May, we'll update you with the dates. So those who have questions, you can just raise your hand using the Zoom option so that we could answer those questions in a concise.
I have a question. Can I?
Go ahead.
Rachel, you mentioned about the size, right? Because, yeah, I agree. In modern education, either like undergrad or MBA students, we have each time less time for preparation. And you mentioned between 1,000 and 5,000 words. But we are considering here the teaching notes included in the 5,000 or just for the case main body?
Just for the case. So because usually the teaching note are going to be the substantial scholarly contribution around it, we don't really introduce a word limit for the teaching notes. So you can write them as long as you want or as brief as you want, so long as they provide the required sections and that kind of base level of guidance for instructors.
Yeah, perfect.
I have also another question. Maybe people are asking for that. And how many cases are going to be published in this series?
Ideally, we were hoping to have 10 to 15 cases as part of the series when it publishes in January 2027. There's no real constraint to that. We can go much higher. It just depends on how many submissions we actually end up getting and the peer review feedback that comes out of them. So, I mean, if we could publish 100 cases, that would be thrilling. But we're aiming for 10 to 15 at least viable cases to publish in January 2027.
Thanks a lot. Any questions from our colleagues?
Please. Okay, thanks so much. I received the email, and in the final text, there is a sign up, a free 30-day Sage business case trial. I don't know if you can tell me more about it. Thanks.
Rachel would be able to tell more.
Yes. So that is a link that you can share with your librarian at your institution. Say you want to recommend Sage business cases to your institution, or if you would like access to any part of the collection, your institution can then use that link. They can request a free 30-day trial to the full collection, which means your institution will have about 1,000 cases open to them for that trial period. And then depending on whether the library wants to make that part of their permanent collection or not, then usually someone from Sage will follow up with the institution itself directly. So we encourage you, if you know that your library is looking for a case resource, or if you'd like to recommend a case resource to your library, that is where that trial sign up link really comes in handy.
Okay, thanks, Talia. But I tried in this link, and something happened. The information it told me that I am not recommended to use this trial is because I am from one institution that is not with the association with Sage. Is that right?
I think it's actually because the trial link is meant for libraries, institutional libraries. So I think if you're being identified as an individual faculty member, it will disqualify you, since typically those requests and those links are active only for librarians who are able to speak on behalf of the full institution. But if you send me if you just respond to that email that I sent, I can reroute it to someone in our trials team, and they can see how they can set you up with a trial or set your institution up with a trial.
Okay, thanks. And thanks for this opportunity for us, the new researchers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Any other questions from our colleagues? Maybe one or two questions, final questions. All right, so seems like we have no questions here, but if there are any doubts or queries, then you can you're more than welcome to look out the webpage or of the special issue series, and you can obviously reach out to us if you have any queries. So thank you very much for your time, and we will also send the PDF version of the slides to all of you. You have a great day ahead. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye.
day.
Good day.
Bye-bye.
Great to see you. Bye-bye. Thank you.